It's funny how clearly you can see the red flags in hindsight, isn't it? They're not just waving. They're practically stadium-sized, illuminated monstrosities. But when you're in it, when you think you found someone special, well, love can be a pretty effective blindfold. My story, the one I'm about to lay out, is about that kind of blindness, the eventual, painful removal of the blindfold and the cold, hard reality that smacked me in the face when I could finally see. My name is Alex. I'm an architect, 32 now, and I've always prided myself on being a pretty analytical guy. I design buildings. I deal in structures, logic, and precision. 3 years ago, I thought I'd found the woman I wanted to build my life with, Isabel, or Izzy, as she preferred. She was 26, a whirlwind of charm, ambition, and what I then perceived as a magnetic personality. She was an aspiring lifestyle influencer, and I, like a fool, was captivated. She moved into the townhouse I designed and owned about 2 years into our relationship. I was doing well, so I didn't think twice about covering almost all the expenses, the mortgage, utilities, the payments on her car, even funding her various content creation projects that never seemed to quite take off or generate any real income. I told myself I was supporting her dream, investing in our future. My best friend, Liam, a lawyer and a guy whose pragmatism I usually valued, had tried to gently wave one of those early flags. Before Izzy and I got engaged, about 6 months ago now, he questioned her almost insatiable appetite for spending and her distinctly all-about-me attitude. He even subtly suggested I consider a prenuptial agreement. I was a successful architect. I had assets. It made sense. But when I broached the subject with Izzy, ever so gently, she unleashed a flood of theatrical tears, accusing me of not trusting her, of valuing money over our love. Like an idiot, wanting to avoid conflict and still believing in the fairy tale, I dropped it. That decision, that single moment of weakness would come back to haunt me. After we got engaged, things subtly, then not so subtly began to shift. Izzy's sense of entitlement seemed to inflate with the diamond on her finger. She started complaining more openly about our life not being aspirational enough for her brand. My home, the one I'd poured my heart and soul into designing, suddenly became a constant, chaotic film set for her content. She'd rearrange furniture, take over rooms for hours, often at the most inconvenient times, and expect me to either vanish or play the role of a silent, adoring assistant or worse, a background prop in her carefully curated online life. Once, she even live-streamed a private argument we were having, framing it with teary eyes to her followers as a brave look into dealing with unsupportive partners in the creative field. I was furious and shut it down, which, of course, led to an even bigger fight where I was accused of sabotaging her career and not understanding the pressure she was under. The real turning point, the moment the first major crack appeared in my denial, happened at a dinner party I hosted. Liam and his wife, Sarah, who's a psychologist and has an unervingly accurate read on people, were there, along with another professional couple, clients of mine, actually. Izzy, after a couple of glasses of champagne, was holding court, as usual, regaling everyone with tales of her high-profile connections and the immense sacrifices she was making for her art. When one of my clients, bless her innocent heart, congratulated us on the engagement and asked about wedding plans, Izzy let out this tinkling, almost dismissive laugh. "Oh, Alex is sweet," she said, her voice carrying across the table. "A wonderful foundation." Then she looked directly at me, a patronizing smile playing on her lips, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He knows he's my adorable starter husband, doesn't he, babe? Every girl needs one. Solid, dependable, before she upgrades to the penthouse suite of life." She finished with a dramatic wink at our guests. The air went still. You could have heard a pin drop on my custom-polished concrete floors. Liam's face was thunderous. Sarah, ever the professional, simply raised an eyebrow and exchanged a quick, knowing glance with me. I felt a cold wave of shame and anger wash over me. It was mortifying. Later that night, after our guests had made their awkward, hasty departures, I confronted Izzy. She just shrugged, a picture of unbothered nonchalance. "It was a joke, Alex. God, you're so uptight." Can't you see I'm just building my brand? People love authenticity and a bit of playful banter. Then her voice turned icy. Besides, she added, her eyes glinting, is it that untrue? You're comfortable, but some of us are destined for more. You should be grateful for what you have with me. Grateful? That's what she said. I just stared at her, the woman I thought I loved, and for the first time, a sliver of doubt, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog. That starter husband comment wasn't just a crack. It was a fault line. The ground beneath me had shifted, and I was finally starting to pay attention to the tremors. Liam called the next day, his voice tight with anger. That wasn't a joke, Alex, he said. That was a damn mission statement. You need to open your eyes and protect yourself. Legally, financially. Now. Sarah called too, later that afternoon. She didn't yell. Instead, she offered a calm, psychological perspective on what she called Izzy's pronounced narcissistic traits and clear manipulative tendencies. Her advice was simple. Document everything, Alex. Dates, times, what was said, what was spent. If this goes south, and I suspect it will, you'll need it. Their words, combined with Izzy's casual cruelty, finally spurred me into action. I'd been an architect of my own blissful ignorance for too long. It was time to examine the blueprints of my relationship, to see if the foundations were as rotten as I suddenly feared. Taking Liam and Sarah's advice, I started by meticulously reviewing all our shared finances. It wasn't pretty. The joint credit card, the one I primarily funded and she primarily used, was maxed out. Thousands of dollars on designer clothes I'd never seen her wear in front of me, spa days she'd claimed were gifted collabs, and dinners at high-end restaurants I was never invited to. But the real gut punch came when I dug deeper into my main credit account. There was a new, high-limit card issued to Isabel as an authorized user. I'd never authorized it. She must have applied for it online, using my saved information, probably forging my signature electronically. The statements, I discovered, were being sent to an email address of hers I hadn't even known existed. It carried a balance that made my stomach churn. The $5,000 I'd given her, a supposed investment for an online influencer marketing course, had also vanished, withdrawn in cash installments, never touching any educational institution. While I was unearthing this financial betrayal, Izzy's behavior at home was becoming even more brazen. She grew increasingly secretive with her phone and laptop, often taking hush calls in another room or quickly angling screens away if I walked in. She started talking incessantly about Marcus Thorne, a wealthy, older gallery owner she'd recently connected with. He was her new mentor, apparently so supportive, and someone who truly understands the creative world and the importance of living beautifully. The implication, of course, was that I didn't. Then came the Instagram DM. It was from a Chloe, an account I vaguely recognized as one of Izzy's so-called frenemies, another aspiring influencer in her orbit. Chloe, her message dripping with feigned concern and girl code, told me she just couldn't stand by and watch a good guy get played. According to her, Izzy had been openly bragging in their circle about having me wrapped around her little finger, referring to me as her financial safety net, while she actively pursued Marcus Thorne and other whales, as she apparently called them. Chloe mentioned specific dates and locations where Izzy had been seen with Thorne, describing behavior that was far from entering. She calls you the provider, Alex, Chloe wrote. Says you're too blinded by love to see what she's really doing. Just thought you should know what's really up. Chloe's motives were undoubtedly murky, probably a cocktail of jealousy towards Izzy and a desire to stir the pot. But her information, lining up with my own discoveries, felt chillingly plausible. I was gutted, but something inside me had hardened. The analytical architect was taking over from the blindsided fiancé. I didn't confront Izzy immediately. That would have been playing into her hands, giving her a chance to spin more lies, to unleash more drama. No, this requires strategy. I called Liam. I laid out everything. The dinner party, the financial fraud, Chloe's message. He listened patiently, then said, "Okay, Alex, we fight smart. We gather irrefutable proof. Chloe's word is hearsay. Your discoveries are good, but Izzy will try to deny or downplay them. We need something she can't wriggle out of. On his advice, I discreetly hired a private investigator. It felt extreme, almost sordid, but Liam was right. I needed undeniable evidence, not just for my own peace of mind, but for the legal and financial battles I now knew were inevitable. I needed to see, with my own eyes, just how deep this deception went. The private investigator was worth every penny. Within a few days, he delivered a report that made my blood run cold. It was all there in stark, undeniable detail. Photographs and video footage of Izzy meeting Marcus Thorne at discreet, expensive restaurants, visiting his private gallery after hours. There was one particularly damning shot of them kissing, a passionate, lingering kiss outside a boutique hotel Thorne was known to frequent. The report also noted she'd met two other older, wealthy-looking men for lunches during that same period, encounters that looked far more like dates than business meetings. The Minter narrative was clearly a carefully constructed lie. As if that wasn't enough, my own investigation yielded something even more horrifying. I was looking for some financial documents Izzy had supposedly filed away when I stumbled upon her unlocked laptop. Open on the screen was a document, a cloud-based journal she must have forgotten to close, titled My Ascent, Vision and Strategy. I hesitated for only a moment before diving in. What I read turned my stomach. It was a detailed, chilling account of her dissatisfaction with me. I was too boring, had no real ambition beyond his little buildings. My friends were judgmental and dull. Liam was singled out as that judgmental lawyer, and Sarah, his wife, as his preachy, know-it-all shrink wife. Even my family wasn't spared her derision. The journal outlined her meticulous plans to leverage Alex's stability to climb the social ladder. It contained a list, a literal list of upgrade targets, with Marcus Thorne proudly at number 1, complete with notes on his estimated net worth and her manipulation tactics for each target. She detailed how she was using my money, for clothes, for dinners, for gifts, to impress these new men, to project an image of sophistication she couldn't afford on her own. One entry, seared into my memory, read, "Once MT proposes, or I secure a comparable upgrade, I'll gently let Alex down. He's sensitive, so small it's not you. It's me drama should suffice. He'll fund the transition if I play it right, probably out of guilt. Men are so predictable." Just days later, Izzy announced she was going on a vital networking trip to a luxury wine country resort. A brand was sponsoring it. She claimed a crucial opportunity. She even had the gall to ask me for a small emergency travel fund. Armed with the PI's report and the sickening contents of her vision and strategy journal, I knew this was almost certainly a tryst with Thorne. I feigned overwhelming work commitments, wished her a productive trip, and handed her a minimal amount of cash, watching her face closely for any flicker of suspicion. There was none, only a brief flash of annoyance at the paltry sum. The next day, a Saturday, I drove to that wine country resort. My heart was a cold, hard knot in my chest. I didn't have to search long. There they were by a secluded, sun-drenched cabana near the main pool, Izzy and Marcus Thorne. She was lounging on a chaise, laughing, feeding him grapes. He was leaning in, whispering in her ear. It was a picture of nauseating intimacy. I walked towards them, my phone discreetly recording audio. "Izzy," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Mr. Thorne, quite the networking event." Izzy's head snapped up. The color drained from her face, leaving her perfectly applied makeup looking garish. Thorne just looked irritated at the interruption. "Alex," she stammered, scrambling to sit up. "What were you doing here? This is a business meeting." I held up my phone, displaying the PI's photo of them kissing. "Is this also business, Izzy? Or is this part of your ascent, vision, and strategy?" I then turned to Thorne, who was now looking intrigued. "She has a whole section dedicated to you in her journal, Mr. Thorne. You're upgrade target number 1. Congratulations." Thorne looked from the photo on my phone to Izzy, his expression hardening. "What in the world is he talking about?" "Isabel. She's my fiancée." I stated, my voice flat. Or rather, she's been using my money I earned designing actual buildings, not curating a fantasy life on Instagram, to impress you. She's been living in my house, eating my food, all while meticulously planning to gently let me down once you, or someone with a bigger bank account, proposed. I paused, then added, locking eyes with Izzy. She also seems to have a knack for accessing my credit without authorization. That's a form of fraud, you know. Izzy finally found her voice, a shrill, panicked cry. Alex, he's lying. You're twisting things. You're trying to ruin me. Thorne, however, wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, then back at the photo, a shrewd, calculating expression on his face. He stood up, a man clearly accustomed to cutting his losses. Isabel, he said, his voice like chipped ice, I think you should leave. Now, and I suggest you don't contact me again. He then gave me a curt nod. My apologies, young man. It appears you've had a lucky escape. And with that, Marcus Thorne walked away, leaving Izzy gaping after him. I turned back to her, the woman who had so casually planned to discard me. When you get back to the townhouse, I said, my voice devoid of the rage I felt, replaced by a chilling finality, start packing. Liam will serve you with a formal notice to vacate. You have 72 hours, as per the law. Don't make this any uglier than you've already made our lives. I didn't wait for a reply. I just turned and walked away, leaving her there amidst the sun-drenched hypocrisy of her own making. The drive back was a blur. When Izzy returned to the townhouse later that evening, she wasn't contrite or tearful. She was incandescent with rage. You had no right to humiliate me like that, she shrieked the moment she stormed through the door. You spied on me. You set me up. I was already in the living room, calmly placing her designer knockoffs and curated props into cardboard boxes. Humiliate you, Izzy? I asked, not even bothering to look up. After you've systematically lied to me, cheated on me, and stolen from me for months, possibly years, your things will be on the porch by the end of the week. The locks will be changed the moment your 72 hours are up. Liam, true to his word, formally served her with a notice to vacate the next morning. It was all very legal, very precise, detailing the grounds for her eviction and also including a stern demand letter for the repayment of the fraudulently obtained credit and the $5,000 for that phantom influencer course. Izzy's reaction was predictable. First came the hysterics, the crocodile tears, the pleas for a second chance. When that didn't work, she pivoted to threats. She'd sue me for emotional distress. She'd ruin my reputation. She'd tell everyone I was abusive. On Liam's advice, I disengaged. All communication was to go through him, or if direct interaction was unavoidable, I recorded it. She dragged out the packing process, trying to argue over every little thing, attempting to lay claim to items I had clearly purchased long before she came into my life. I stood firm, armed with an inventory and a resolve I didn't know I possessed. On the final day of her notice period, she finally left, but not before a last vitriolic outburst, screaming that I was a cold, controlling bastard and that I would live to regret throwing away someone like her. The moment her car screeched away from the curb, I had a locksmith there. The sense of relief as those new tumblers clicked into place was immense. But Izzy wasn't done. Within days, the smear campaign began. Her Instagram feed became a highlight reel of vague, tearful stories about escaping a narcissistic abuser, the pain of betrayal, and men who try to dim your shine. Some of her more gullible followers, of course, lapped it up and sent me a barrage of hateful messages and comments. It was annoying, but largely ignorable. Then she escalated. She actually tried to sabotage my career. She found out about a major client. I was in the process of finalizing a large, prestigious project with a new community art center. She contacted them directly, spinning a wild tale about me being professionally unstable, emotionally volatile, and facing serious legal troubles that could jeopardize any project I was involved in. The client, understandably concerned, called me. My heart sank. This was my reputation, my livelihood she was attacking. But Liam had prepared me for this. I calmly explained that I was dealing with a malicious and untruthful ex-partner who was attempting to cause me professional harm. I provided a brief, professional written statement refuting her claims and offered to have Liam speak to their legal team if they had any further concerns. Thankfully, the client, a board of sensible, experienced people, appreciated my transparency and professionalism. Perhaps they even did a quick online search and saw Izzy's increasingly unhinged social media persona for what it was. They decided to proceed with the project, expressing their sympathies for my situation. Liam, meanwhile, fired off a formidable cease and desist letter to Izzy regarding defamation and tortious interference, warning her of severe legal consequences if her harassment continued. A few weeks after Izzy's departure, I received an unexpected email. It was from Marcus Thorne. To my surprise, he expressed a sort of grudging respect for how I'd handled the situation at the resort. He went on to say that, after our encounter, he'd done a bit more digging into Izzy himself. He discovered she'd also been trying to extract money from him for various fictitious urgent medical bills, and had even borrowed a valuable first-edition art book from his personal library that she conveniently never returned. "She's a piece of work, a grifter through and through," he wrote. "Consider this information a contribution to your file, should you need it for any legal purposes. Good luck to you, Alex. You seem like a decent fellow." It was a small thing, but it further solidified the picture of Izzy as a serial manipulator, and strangely, it helped. It wasn't just me she targeted. The following months were about rebuilding. I focused on my work, poured my energy into the Arts Center project, and started therapy, which Sarah had gently encouraged. Liam and Sarah were my rocks, offering unwavering support, legal counsel, and a much-needed reality check whenever I found myself replaying events or, God forbid, feeling a moment of misplaced pity for Izzy. Slowly, the anger and betrayal began to fade, replaced by a quiet determination to not let this experience define me or destroy my capacity for trust. Life has a funny way of course-correcting. About 8 months after Izzy's dramatic exit, I was at a gallery opening. Ironically, not Thorne's, for an exhibition in a space I'd recently redesigned. That's where I met Sophia. She was an art historian, intelligent, witty, with a refreshingly down-to-earth demeanor and a genuine passion for her work. We started talking first about the art, then about architecture, then about life. There were no games, no pretenses. Our connection was slow, organic, built on mutual respect, shared interests, and hours of genuine conversation. Sophia was everything Izzy wasn't. Honest, independent, kind, and genuinely appreciative of me for who I was, not for what I could provide. She had her own successful career, her own passions, her own life. Being with her felt like breathing clean air after being trapped in a smoke-filled room. Meanwhile, snippets of Izzy's life, or rather, her downfall, would occasionally filter back to me, usually via a gleeful DM from Chloe, who seemed to relish every misfortune that befell her former frenemy. Thorne had apparently made it his mission to warn his extensive social circle about her. Her other prospects had dried up. Her influencer engagement had plummeted, her feed now a desperate mix of recycled platitudes and poorly veiled pleas for sympathy or brand deals that never materialized. She was reportedly deep in debt, couch surfing between long-suffering acquaintances, and even her parents, according to Chloe, had finally cut her off financially after discovering the true extent of her deceptions and the trail of unpaid bills she'd left in her wake. I thought that was the end of it. I was moving on, building something real with Sophia. Izzy was just a bad memory, a cautionary tale. Then, one rainy Tuesday evening, about a year after I'd last seen her, as Sophia and I were hosting a quiet dinner for Liam and Sarah in my townhouse. Our townhouse, as it was starting to feel, there was a sudden, frantic banging at the front door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was the sound of someone desperate or unhinged. I exchanged a wary glance with Liam and opened the door. And there she was, Izzy. She looked rough, disheveled, her makeup smudged by what looked like recent tears, yet still with an air of theatrical desperation. Flanking her was her mother, Brenda, a woman I'd met a few times and who always seemed perpetually overwhelmed by her daughter. And squeezed beside Brenda was a nervous-looking young woman clutching a notepad, whom Izzy grandly introduced as my friend, who's a paralegal, here for moral and legal support. Izzy launched into her performance immediately. "Alex," she wailed, her voice cracking. "Thank God. You have to help me. I'm pregnant. She clutched her stomach dramatically. It's yours, Alex. It has to be. We need to talk about our future. For the baby. Brenda, on cue, started dabbing her eyes. My poor baby. Alex, you have to do the right thing by her. You have to. The paralegal friend just looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. I remained calm. Sophia, bless her, moved to stand beside me, a quiet, solid presence. Liam and Sarah were visible just inside the doorway, a silent but formidable united front. Sophia even subtly placed a supportive hand on my arm. Izzy, Brenda, I said, my voice steady. If you believe you're pregnant, Izzy, and you somehow believe it's mine after all this time and everything that's happened, then I'm prepared to take a paternity test after the child is born. We can arrange it all through proper legal channels, via Liam here. There's nothing further to discuss tonight. Izzy became even more hysterical. You can't deny your own child, she shrieked. I was just at the doctor this morning. I'm so stressed, I might lose it. You wouldn't want that on your conscience, would you, Alex? The death of your unborn child. That's when the pieces clicked. The desperation, the doctor visit this morning, it sounded familiar. I looked her dead in the eye. This morning, you say, Izzy? That's fascinating, I said, my voice dropping to a level almost dangerously quiet, because Marcus Thorne shared some rather interesting emails with me a while back. Apparently, just 2 months ago, you were also claiming to be pregnant. With his child. You were trying to get him to pay for emergency specialist appointments. He even had his own doctor verify that you weren't pregnant then, Izzy. So, who's the father this time? And which doctor are you seeing now that can confirm this incredibly rapid conception and pregnancy, especially after Thorne's trusted physician said otherwise just weeks ago? Absolute silence. Izzy's carefully constructed drama shattered like cheap glass. Her jaw literally dropped. The paralegal friend took a visible step back. Brenda, her mother, looked utterly confused. Then a dawning horror spread across her face as she turned to her daughter. Isabel? What is he talking about? Marcus Thorne? Another pregnancy? Izzy didn't answer. Her face crumpled, and she burst into genuine, ugly sobs. Not the performative tears I was used to, but the racking, hopeless cries of someone whose last desperate gamble had failed spectacularly. I don't know what to do, she choked out between sobs. My life is over. Everything's a mess. I looked at her, this broken, manipulative woman, and for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just a profound sense of emptiness where my feelings for her used to be. That's a situation you created, Izzy, I said, my voice firm but devoid of any malice. It's not my responsibility, nor anyone else's here, to fix it for you. Please leave. I gently but firmly closed the door. Through the frosted glass, I could see Liam offering to call building security if they didn't disperse. They left, Brenda looking utterly devastated, practically dragging a still sobbing Izzy away. Later, as if on cue, Chloe sent me one last, smug DM. The pregnancy, of course, was a total fabrication, a desperate last-ditch attempt to rope me back in, or at least extort some money. Izzy was apparently now trying to launch some sort of tell-all YouTube channel about her journey of victimhood and betrayal, but, unsurprisingly, it was gaining no traction. Sophia squeezed my hand. Are you okay? She asked softly. I looked at her kind, intelligent eyes, and then around my living room, at Liam and Sarah, my true friends. And I smiled, a genuine smile. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I really am. Izzy was obsessed with replacing what she had, always chasing some elusive upgrade in her desperate quest for a fantasy life. In the end, the only thing she truly succeeded in replacing was herself, leaving an empty void where a genuine, loving relationship could have been. I, on the other hand, had found something irreplaceable in Sophia, in my friends, in the quiet dignity of a life built on honesty and mutual respect. I wish Izzy, well, honestly, I wish her whatever it is she's still out there looking for, as long as it's far, far away from me and the life I've rebuilt. Some people, I guess, never learn, but I did. And for that, I'm profoundly grateful.